Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Marie Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry coming to you from two different studios at the edge of the Great Red Divide. You can find all of our previous works at Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.com, all podcast platforms, and proudly part of the Demcast USA network. You can also find us on YouTube, bringing you the progressive news and views you can use right here. So, Murray, today, uh, real concerned because the story I thought was one thing ended up being something completely different. And I'm
You
still writing
know,
notes as we're going on the air. And I was a little distracted for our intro and didn't do it exactly right. But I apologize for that because, ladies and gentlemen, my mind is blown. What I thought was just the end of Fair and Balanced News, which we know Ronald Reagan killed in the 70s, is really a problem right now. I mean, a much bigger problem than I thought when I proposed this story to Murray. So, Murray, go ahead. Tell him what we're going to talk about today.
all right. We are going to talk about the Alden Venture Capital Group. This is an organization that has investors, and they purchase up struggling or financially questionable publications. They take those publications, they come in, they dismantle those publications, selling off assets, everything
Yeah.
from the buildings to the machines to office furniture.
Yeah.
They liquidate as much as possible. They'll take as
Right.
many as have
They
only
turn off the
two to
hot
three.
water.
They do. Or two or three local journalists on staff, and they substitute a majority with the syndicated media, which is why it's concerning to begin with. Heidi and I have done many shows that talk about the media
About
and
the.
how
Yeah.
certain people have control over a large portion. And we tend to focus on digital media. We tend to focus on TV, radio. All of us do, but we kind of drop the ball when it comes to newsprint.
We do, Murray, and well, somewhat because I've railed against the fact that Sinclair and media has picked up so many of the little local papers. Out here, we have where I live, Shaw Media has picked up all of the local newspapers, and they digest them down to just a little couple of pages. Get rid of most of the editorial boards. They take freelance writers. There's few reporters. There's few photojournalists. The reporters that they do have to take their own pictures, and then they go down to once a week in some cases, from a daily paper to once a week. And so we have talked about print media and the loss of local, super local news. But now we're talking about giants of the industry. We're talking about the LA Times. We're talking about the Baltimore Sun. And what brought me to this point, Murray, was the Chicago Tribune, which I was raised in the Chicago suburbs. Everybody read the Tribune. Everybody read the Tribune. I couldn't wait to get it from the time I learned to read by reading the Chicago Tribune. That's how my mom taught me to read when I was 3 or 4. I could read before kindergarten proficiently. And so when I look at that, it's like, man, you're talking about some of the best Pulitzer Prize winning journalism on the planet. Now, they lean awfully far to the right for my taste, but they're still a really good, solid source of local news. And it's not like the Chicago market doesn't have another newspaper. They have the Sun Times, which is really excellent. But if they take away news, local news, for a huge market like Chicago, where they have the majority share, and they get rid of the columnists, and they get rid of the beat writers, and they get rid of the reporters, and they get rid of the photojournalists, it leaves them with another version of USA Today, which is owned by another venture capitalist group. I mean, their whole idea is just to run them, take them apart, sell off the parts, run them until they've run them out of breath and then take them through bankruptcy.
And
That's what,
actually, you're absolutely right. That's what venture vulture capitalists do. And we've seen this happen with a couple of major conglomerates buying up all of the newspapers. Right now, three-quarters of the top newspaper markets are owned by venture capital firms. So,
right,
three-quarters of the major media markets print, the top 200, every city is owned by one of these firms.
right.
The numbers don't look good. And when they talk about it, we've seen research that has been done over the last few years, and it shows the real impact that this has. They show that on average, a town or municipality's cost basis goes up 5 to 11 points when they do not have local journalists covering those topics. So, like Heidi was talking about, yep, the Tribune has a slant. Yep, the editors have a slant. We know that. But they also have reporters who go and cover the small stories, the alderman stories, the neighborhood stories, the city hall stories. They're at the county board meetings because they give us a synopsis of what's going on. And maybe you don't read what's going on in those areas, but what you do need is you need to be able to keep them honest, and that's what reporters do. Local reporters show up at a county board redistricting meeting, right? That there's one person at, okay,
Right.
and yet they know there's a reporter there, so they have to do things the right way. And when
Right.
we don't have reporters, they can take advantage of things. They found not only that, but it decreases civic participation. It suppresses the vote because people don't have information that they need, which politicians also like.
We have the information. No. And the thing is when they don't have the information that they need, as the New York Times says, democracy dies in the darkness, right? And the newspapers, print media, media in general, reporters, that's the fourth estate of the United States.
It
That's
really
that's
is.
what yeah, that's what keeps our politicians honest. It keeps our local governments honest. It keeps things out there in the light of day. It shines light on subjects that are really crucial. I always tell people the reason that I left the Chicago suburbs with my horse farm is because they had a rezoning meeting and didn't include me. I had no say in what happened to my property. I just had to get out. Now they can't have those zoning meetings without public notices posted in front of the property, posted in the newspaper, posted, etc. I loved where I lived and I loved what I did and I had a huge business out there. But when they decided I couldn't have an agricultural business within what was going to be acquired by the city of Wheaton, I had no business anymore. I had to move.
Right.
Journalism helps shine lights on issues as simple as that. And something as major as your property taxes going up, violence increasing, tuitions increasing, you name it. I mean, everything is under the spotlight of media. It's under the spotlight of these reporters. And without that, things just can keep going without any accountability whatsoever, Murray.
You're absolutely right. And you know, Heidi, let me harken back. Do you remember the days back in the old days when we used to worry about disinformation coming
Right.
from the internet, coming from Russian stories being planted here and there? Well, you know, there's another, or no, I'm sorry. When we used to worry about the right wing media getting it, and then we learned about the connections worldwide. Well, having so much of our journalism controlled by foreign
Yeah.
interests is a very dangerous thing for our country. The FBI released several reports recently, and they all conclude with the ability for venture capitalists
Yeah.
to launder money and then use that to influence things in the United States because of the way it is structured. Venture capitalist firms do not have to disclose who their investors are.
No.
And actually, wasn't it, during the primary that Elizabeth Warren came out and said that was one of the loopholes that she was going to close, that they would be required to do that.
Right.
Well, of
Murray,
course, you
when
know
you,
that.
yeah,
Go ahead.
when you brought up this angle to this story, I was thinking about just from the journalistic standpoint.
You
And then
were.
you delivered that news and the ties, the deep, deep ties to both Russia and China, who don't mean us any good. They don't want the best for the United States. And when we allow shadow investors to control our news media, it's worse than the Koch brothers and Sinclair media, Murray. I'm telling you,
It
worse.
is, Heidi. It actually is. And as we go into our part two on this for Thursday's live show, the Koch brothers are involved here. So is
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch. It is a giant
Yep.
cluster, guys. So let's talk a little bit more about let me finish with the FBI. The FBI is really concerned about the ability for foreign interests to dismantle the public press. Okay.
Yes.
Because that is so important, right? Our free press. Heidi did a beautiful job explaining why so much depends on having a reporter in the room. Because if there's someone in the room watching, you tend to behave better. You know that things are going to be out there. If you have no one in that room, sometimes humans baser instincts get the better of them. But like we
Right.
said, this goes to national security. So when we had the Russia disinformation campaigns in 2015 and 16, we learned a lot, but we didn't pay attention to the print media. And this is what is happening here. So Alden Capitol started by a gentleman by the name of Randall Smith.
Yes.
Now, Randall Smith began Alden Capital in 2007, and he had taken a big interest in turning newspapers into online media that generated revenue. And at first, he had done a great job, and then he started to expand, and he made a lot of investments in Russia. And those investments in Russia, they didn't go so good. The firm lost 67% of all of its assets by investing in Russia. So he came back and he's like, all right, well, and he builds, and everyone knows what he does. So he hires this young lad named Heath.
Heath Freeman.
Heath, I could not remember his last name. Thank you, love.
Yeah.
Heath Freeman. And you guys may have seen Heath Freeman's picture if you Google Alden or Tribune sale. It's been covered quite a bit. And everyone in the industry knows that he is a devourer of journalism. And I don't mean a devourer as in I love journalism and it's the passion of my life. I mean devourer as in I will suck everything out of it and then watch it die. So he brings this fella on, and he's quite charming and quite a
Handsome.
delightful.
Yeah.
And he has dismantled so many jobs
In 14 years. In 14 years.
years.
In 14 years, he's taken staff from local papers, 1,500 people, and reduced it down to 150 people, shut off their hot water, sold off their office furniture, failed to maintain the building, gotten rid of their photojournalists, gotten rid of all their beat reporters, takes freelance stories only. I mean, he just what he does is meant to corrupt and end free and fair news in the United States. And he does that to make a buck. I mean, he is a vampire, a blood-sucking, news-sucking vampire. So, and he lives like a hermit. He doesn't want you to know his face. He doesn't want you to know his name. He doesn't want you to know his ties.
He's like, in pre-show, I think I said he's like the J.D. Salinger of the journalism world.
Well, if he was only
media.
a J.D. Salinger.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're right. And so as we start to dig a little bit deeper into this, we find these connections. We find that this company has had several losses, big losses, but they seem to rebound every time. And then they tend to come from Ukrainian and Russian government. So, so you have the FBI
And you
saying
don't
that,
say.
yeah, saying
The
that the sale of
Kremlin.
local
You don't
media
say.
is dangerous, that it
Yeah.
could be treasonous. And then you've got everybody selling to foreign interests. 80% of Alden Group's investors are foreign investors. And this
And
ties
not
in with
just foreign, but just limited to two foreign entities.
mhm,
Just two that would like to see the United States fail. That plant so many stories and love Donald Trump because he was the clown car steering the Titanic, or the clown steering the Titanic right into the iceberg deliberately. Um, Gee, on purpose. I mean, you have to look back at the last 4 or 5 years, Marie, and go, oh my God, all that shit was on purpose. All of it. And be stunned and appalled. And when you realize the connections are outside the normal operations of a venture vulture capitalist and the impetus and the reasoning behind it. Now, somebody else has until June 30th to step up and try to save the Chicago Tribune. But for every Chicago Tribune there's out there, there's the Baltimore Sun and the New York
but
Daily News.
remember, the Chicago Tribune is not just the Chicago Tribune. The
Right.
Chicago Tribune is also the Orlando Sentinel, a paper, I can't think of the paper in Arizona, and the New York Post. So
Yes.
that's several major media areas
Right.
that are going to be losing local journalism. And,
It's
you know, with how
the Grim
crooked
Reaper.
Chicago is, come on, you know, we got to have
Yeah.
somebody there. Heidi, did I mention, when you were talking about Randall Smith, I can't remember if I mentioned that shortly after Elizabeth Warren made those comments about changing foreign investors and making requirements, investors being required to be listed. Very shortly after, the Mr. Smith donated $50,000 to Donald Trump's victory fund, and his
Yes, he
wife
did.
donated $50,000 to Donald Trump's fund.
Right.
And you know, again, as of now, it is a bit circumstantial, but should you come back and join us on Thursday, you will see there's a lot more
Yeah.
going on here.
Well, Alden Global Capital now owns a 32% stake in the Chicago Tribune, and they picked up 2 board seats.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they are steering the ship right now.
They have been for the last year. They gave them an extra time to try to find somebody to buy, and the Tribune has
Well,
done. They have
they
worked so
actually have until June
hard.
30th. Yeah, they have
They have
until
worked.
June 30th.
Yeah, but they have worked so hard, and there isn't an investor anywhere that wants to go near them. But what they should be doing is thinking about this from a national security perspective. Can the Department of Justice stop this acquisition from happening? Because literally, they are Russian investors in a twisted scheme, Ponzi scheme, a money laundering Ponzi scheme that is going to be taking over major media markets, newspapers, and they've already done this. Somebody
And
has to stop it.
they're not limited to just these vulture capitalists with these ties to foreign investors. Are not just limited to print media. They have branched out into to television, small local television stations. They've been buying those up
Radio,
as well.
in particular,
Radio.
as well, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So, guys, this is a great story, and it is a one that's going to chill you at night, which you know the mamas like to give you. That little bit of, oh crap, I thought everything was okay.
yeah.
So, we will be back on
This is
Thursday with
not
part
okay.
two. And we'll be going
Yeah,
deep, deep into the connections between Alden Capital, Fortress, and the Russian government. All right.
yeah.
Thanks again, everyone. Be sure to tune in. Tune in.
Oh,
Tune
yeah.
in on Thursdays at 3 o'clock and Tuesdays at 3 o'clock for our live show. If you miss it, you can always watch it on Facebook. You can listen to it on Spotify, Demcast USA, heck, any place you get your favorite podcasts. And if you want to go see our goofy faces, it is also up on YouTube. But you cannot do that unless you like, subscribe, and share, because that means our voice gets to more people. And check out our independent radio show, Heartland Mamas Unrolled. Thanks again from Heartland Mamas, Heartland Mamas.
Yeah, Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.com. We will see you on Thursday. This was a much bigger topic than I thought it was. It took weird twists and turns. I wasn't
just
prepared.
Wait. The weirdest is yet to come.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.